Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here on this 1111 portal. We're going to talk about several things today, specifically what the 1111 portal is, how we can access it or utilize it for our benefit, and then some action steps on what we can do with the information that we receive. So, first and foremost, if you're new to me, hello, my name is Mindy. I'm the owner and founder of Mountainmedicine Coaching. And I usually work with cards. I do a lot of card readings and I work in the Akashic Records as well as one-on-one coaching. So welcome if you're new to me. I wanted to begin today by talking about this portal and what that word means. We hear it all the time. People talk about transits and talk about things with astrology, and it's always some date and there's some portal associated with it, right? So the way that I like to see these things is numbers have significance, and the 1111 is all ones, and it's the most ones that you can have on a calendar or a clock. So on 1111, we've started this live here, and it's really significant to new beginnings and fresh starts. So when you see 1111, people always say, oh, okay, well, I'm on the right path and spirit is speaking to me. And that's absolutely the case. It's saying that you're opening new doors. And, throughout my practice, throughout my spiritual transformation coaching practice, I talk a lot about these doorways. And there's usually in the Akashic records, when we access them, there's like this stairway. And people always talk about the stairway to heaven, like this grand staircase in the Akashic records that leads to either a gate, a door, or some sort of podium through these meditations that you can access online, or of course that I offer. But traditionally, there's this gateway and you're opening these golden gates, right? So when you're seeing 1111, it's saying that you're in tune and attuned with new doors being opened for you. And I have my key necklace on here. I also work a lot with keys and a lot with doors. So when I do Akashic records and also shadow work, I'm imagining this staircase, but it's a lot more like this ant farm, right? So the 3D would be like the level that we typically live on. Anything below that 3D is shadow work or shadow side, right? And we're navigating more of the icky stuff, karmic relationships, people in our realm that don't necessarily feel good to be talking to, toxic relationship, family members, the list goes on, right? Even being stuck at a traffic stop. Whenever we feel that out of alignment moment, we're below that 3D and we're starting to go through more of the clouded stairways, hallways, right, of this ant farm that I'm using for visual reference. So the idea of the Akashic records and the idea of moving upwards and onwards is to be opening doors that are for our highest good, which is why it's so important for us to ask our higher sources in order to get permission to open said door, because some things can be painted as this beautiful, gorgeous offer online or contracts that may be signed. It's painted up to be this beautiful thing. But if we don't use our discernment with our intuition, sometimes we can open doors that are not necessarily aligned to our highest good, which is something that I teach very, very meticulously, because these doors can lead down tunnels, down the hallways and the staircases to a less desirable outcome. And we can get stuck on a plane that is not where we want to be. So we have to really use discernment and use our intuition when we're opening doors, but also having the Akashic records in our back pocket ensures that every decision that we're making, every door that we're opening is attuned to our highest good and for the highest good of all involved, right? So that, in my estimation, is the 1111 portal. It's the highest vibrating portal. It's that stairway to heaven, right? And the Akashic records to me is like where our spirit guides live. It's where our passed over ancestors live. It is this heaven. And so to get to that point of enlightenment, as Buddha would have put it, is, or like nirvana, right, is to always be following this light. And the light is always going to lead you upwards. Okay. So that light can be many things, but It's something that happens within you, right? We talk about these aha moments, yes, where we will see something and we'll say, that is definitely for me. That's the discernment piece, is thinking, that is my destiny. This is the way I need to go. This is fate expressing itself to me. And then taking that action then opens that door. So you'll hear people all the time saying, oh, I just signed up for this and I can already feel the energy shift. It's because we've made a decision. So the 1111 portal is saying you've made the right decisions, you're on the right doorstep, you're on the right step. Does that make sense? Because how I mentioned the staircases, there's not just one, okay? There's going to be choices that lead you this way, down that path, down that staircase, and then we get into rabbit holes and we get into, these different tunnel visions that can get us lost in this ant farm, so to speak, right? So following the light, which is different for everyone, and that's what's so difficult to teach, is people can say, follow the light, it will guide you. But on every one of these doors, there is a little light, and sometimes it is sparkly and gorgeous and beautifully presented, and sometimes it's just a dim little candle, right? And I say these things because I see them in my Akashic Records meditations that I lead. Everything is distinguished in some visual representation. So when I'm doing a reading for somebody or a session, and we come up to this idea that we want to look into farther, right? We're, for example, tapping into a relationship. In my mind, I will go to that door in order to ask permission to go inside of it, because of course there's two sides to every story. If we're tapping into some sort of family dynamic or a relationship, there's someone else involved. And I can't necessarily reach out to that person to get permission from them to tap into their Akashic records, right? So what I will do is I will ask my spirit team, do I have permission to open this door and to go inside and to get this reading? And what happens is the person who has ordered the session or the reading has given me permission to attune to the situation enough to give them the information they need to know today. So it's not necessarily saying, hey, what is this other person in their life thinking right now? How can we dive into their psyche, right? It's not necessarily that. It's me looking at the situation as a whole and saying, okay, let's decipher what is here available to you to retrieve and take with you, right? So again, going back to the door, before I ever open it, it will look a certain way. So if it's something that is not necessarily for the highest good, it's not necessarily recommended to access, the door will look like prison doors with, crisscrossed iron gate on it. Sometimes it will have giant locks on it, like big, huge locks. Sometimes there will be a guard outside in front of that door, to which myself or my guides can talk to in the spirit, that guard. Now, when I do shadow work, this is also something that I will do. Traumatic experiences and really deep healing journeys on a cellular level, a lot of times these healers and coaches will say, just go do more healing, just go do more healing. But the problem is we're consistently opening that door. Yes, shamanic journeys, Stephanie, exactly. And there is a lot of do's and don'ts, right, when it comes to this deep healing work. And sometimes I had a client when I was in Canada who had a lot of trauma, and she was scared of spiritual awakening for the purpose of every time she attempted to open her channeling abilities, that specific door came up because that is where she was on her level. Now, in order for me to even do a reading or do the session, I had to say, okay, I'm taking that there is trauma here. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop opening that door. We're going to close that door. We're going to put a lock on it. We're going to take the key, take it away, hand it to this guard. Now we're going to put 2 guards out front and another 2 guards out front and another 2 guards, right? And then we were able to say that is a protected space. I don't have to go there. all the time in order to have any spiritual awakening experience. I can move past that, right? So again, this idea of moving upstairs, when we have these traumatic experiences and all these healers and coaches keep wanting to revisit that and heal deeper and heal deeper and heal deeper and deeper, what we're doing is we're going down. And the goal is to move up and to get out of that rat race, that matrix, right? This ant farm that I'm referring to, yes? So when we're stuck down in that depth and we have not yet closed that door, it makes it awfully difficult for us to find the light. Which way do I need to be going? So 1111 is that indication that you've made the proper steps. You're going in the right direction, right? And a lot of times we see memes and all these funny things online that say, well, my life is in shambles, but thank goodness I'm seeing 1111, right? So it's that frustrating part of being in the 3D, in the matrix, and seeing 1111. We're like, how could I possibly be on the right step, right? But it is also a cosmic calling to make a decision, start a new beginning. So it could be you're on the right path. Of course, we're on the right path because we're alive today, right? So when we think to ourselves, this is a calling to make a new decision, to take another step forward, that's the universe giving us that permission to open a new door, right? So as above, so below, yes? As we go down to do deep healing and we close doors and open doors that are necessary for us, we also are opening doors up the staircase as we get higher and higher to this nirvana, this akasha, and enlightenment state, right? So there's always growing that we're going to be doing. And so there's always new doors to open. And that is where we get really freaked out when it's time to open a new door, right? Making a decision to launch the business, to provide ourselves with this new direction. And it doesn't have to be a new direction all the time. Many of the times we know what direction we are going in. We just need to take a step, right? So whether you have a meditation and you see the doorway, this is something I definitely recommend doing, especially when I have people who want to book a session with me to figure out what their next step is. I cannot express to you how many times as a coach I have heard people say, what is my next step? And this is what I imagine every single time. I imagine my client on this staircase and there are doors all around them, and they have this option to choose any of these multitude of doors. So it's important to know the direction and to get our psyche behind the idea of making said leap, right? Or taking said step. So if at the end of the day, you are able to say to yourself, okay, I am making this decision. I am going to go this way. Spirit, what do I need to know today? Okay, perfect. And you come back and then you say, Spirit, I am making this decision. I'm going to go this way. What do I need to know today? And then you come back and you say, okay, here are the choices. And when I get myself into the idea and the decision-making process of going this way, it feels like this. Okay, write that down. Now, when I tap into this direction, what does that feel like, right? This is what I mean when it comes to intuitive discernment. But you have to be in the zone. You have to be in the cognitive space of having already made that decision. That's the huge difference here on being able to get a clear reading. If you're interested in the Akashic Records, and that's something I highly, highly recommend, not just because I offer it, but because the spiritual gifts that I had doing cards and sessions with people before the records was great. But after the records, I was absolutely stunned at the things that have opened up for me since then. So again, if you all are interested in that, let me know, because that is open for enrollment as of now. So I want to go back to talking about this light, right? We talk about following the light. However, it's different for everyone what that light is, who's holding the light, where is the light going. This light that lives within all of us is what is a reactor to our surroundings and to the angels, right, that we work with. Now, we work a lot with Archangel Michael, Metatron, Raphael, the list goes on, right? But there's also guides in the shadows, right? So Hecate, we have Medusa, Nyx, and Persephone, and all these that guide in the underworld. Now, I just recently tapped into this, and it's been very, very interesting because when I say, or when I call upon these guides in the shadow work side, it has been amazing. I say, okay, I have myself or I have a client who's stuck down here. They're below the 3D. They're stuck in anxiety. They're stuck in not knowing what to do next. There's this confusion and chaos. And I will tap into these guides and I will say, help us find the light for this person that I'm doing a session for. And it has been absolutely amazing. So the next thing that is coming to be is going to be a shadow work course that guides you all through this staircase going down through these tunnels, because just as God has his angels and his soldiers, so does the devil. And I know people get uncomfortable when I bring up these archetypes, but you know what? It is just words. So if it doesn't resonate, then change it. But as above, so below. Yes. So as we're channeling down below the surface level and we're in toxic relationships, we're in a toxic job, we don't want to go take a shower, we don't want to go to the grocery store, we are in shadow. And people kind of lose their mind about that because it's hard to understand that you're operating from a shadow space. And in order to get up and out of that, we want to quit our job, leave the person, move out of the country, and stop everything. And when we're to that point, that you're to a position where you need to make changes. And then you're going to start seeing things like 1111, right? So when I say follow the light within, it means that it's following things that light you up, things that spark the flame. Everyone is going to have something separate. And somebody here likes karate. I don't know who, but it could be live or on a replay, but I heard like karate, but moving your body, right? That can be somebody's joy. I like dancing. I do the Western swing dancing and line dancing. That lights me up, right? And maybe it's just body movement because I was called to karate. So that's something you can definitely do. It's almost like that Tai Chi where you're able to kind of like harness the energy ball. That is so insanely beautiful to do when we're like harnessing this energy, right? What we're doing is making a power ball, and that is the light within us, in which case we are expanding our aura up and out. So when we have these things that light us up, whether it be colors, which we use a lot for branding, brand recognition, for those who are also in spiritual business growth, we channel a lot of that through the records. Getting dressed up and going out, getting dressed down and staying home. It depends on what lights you up. And then there's like fairy tale novels. Somebody here likes that. You guys get the point, but the point is whatever it is that lights you up is particular to you. And the more that you can feed your own power ball and bring more of what lights you up to the center of your being, you can do so in 20 minutes, 40 minutes. And make these changes. For me, when I'm anxious or if I am just like over the world, I get in my car and I want to go for a drive. And I go to where there's wide open spaces away from the city and I just sit. And I have my handful of places that I know I can go to just go sit. And I sometimes intend on getting answers, right, from that drive. But sometimes it's just simply to fill my cup up. And I think that that's what's significant today is filling your cup up with what lights you up so that you can then empower yourself farther. And what happens is, and we hear coaches talk about this all the time, no matter where you are on your journey, you've been wanting to go to the ocean. Oh my gosh, that would be so wonderful. I want to go too. I really do. Doesn't that sound so amazing to go sit at the ocean? Could you imagine the vast open space? Being from the mountains, it kind of freaks me out. I'm not going to lie. I've been to the ocean a few times and every time I'm like, where's the mountains? Like, I don't see the end. Even going to like, when I was in Canada, it was just like fields, or if I ever go to like Wyoming, like the east side of Wyoming, I'm just like, there's too much open space. Where's my mountains? Yeah, it's interesting. It's like a shell shock when you get out of the mountains, right? So that's just kind of silly, but it gives you such a vast, open feeling to be surrounded by ocean. And as I was saying, yes, when we're on the staircase, so to speak, coaches talk about this all the time. They say that there's always somebody a couple steps behind you who needs what you have to offer. Now attribute that to this staircase and assume that you're maybe way down here, just right above or below the 3D level of like okayness, right? And we have our ups, we have our downs, but for the most part, you're resonating down here. Now, as I mentioned, there was somebody who had trauma and they were stuck, totally lost in this matrix, this ant farm, and they don't have a light at all. And here you are coming and going and resonating at this place where you feel like crap, but you know how to get yourself out of it. And sometimes you slip down, but you can get out of it. And so you resonate like this. This other person is way down here and they are stuck and they are swimming around this fishbowl of trauma, right? And you have this light within you, even if it feels somewhat dim, or even if you feel like you haven't fed it in a while, you are this burning candle in their dark, right? And so this is where I always bring in the Hermit card of the tarot. You guys know I love my tarot cards. Your light is like a candle in a window and it draws people to you. Just being yourself, just living your life, just being who you are meant to be in this moment with the gunk, with the trash, with the stuff, with the chaos, still showing up and being truly yourself is the answer. And that is the light that guides you. Do you understand that like significance? They say, follow the light home, follow the light up. And the light is within you. As you feed yourself, that light becomes stronger and it continues to magnetically pull you upwards and onwards, away from trauma, drama, and chaos, and up towards enlightenment and nirvana. So real quickly, before I run out of time, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how to access the record. So the way that I like to do it is through meditation, because visuals I feel are so much stronger than getting words, like hearing it. Now that's just the way that I use my clairs, the clairvoyance versus clairaudience, right? Some people hear messages and that's great. Some people see things being written down and that's wonderful. So when I do my meditations, I give people all of those options, right? So we're guided to a door, we ask permission, we open the gates, we walk through, and I say, now we're going to go to the most beautiful place you've ever seen. I don't describe what it looks like. I don't give them anything that they see specifically. I just say, we're going to this beautiful space. And now we're going to wait for your spirit guide. The guide is very important because, again, they're there as a guard as well, right? To ensure that we're opening the correct doors. And my guide will sometimes just shake his head and we'll keep going, right? Because a lot of times what happens is we're stuck in this 3D moment and we start thinking, okay, I need to just get somewhere. I need to go up this ladder and I need to open a door and I need to go. And our psyche is on hyperdrive, right? So in the Akashic records, I will meditate and bring that way, way down and enjoy the space. A lot of times, the first couple of times people get into the records, they just cry. And I'm not playing. I did the same thing. It's so loving and you're surrounded by this peace. It's like our normal brain and our normal spirit doesn't know how to cope with actually being in peace and having this healing light around us, right? So yes, it's like a place of wonderful transformation and expansion and knowledge, but it comes from the energy of being so supported, loved, and guided. Most of the time, people just break down, myself included, and it's so healthy, it's so healing, right? Because we're finally up and out of that trench where we've been stuck with our trauma, yes? So then from there, usually it takes several different times to meditate and to see the same thing. And then we go one step further. And then you get to go write it down in your notebook. And then you come back to it. You do the meditation again. We get one step further. You write that down. One step further. You write that down. So that's why for me, the course itself is so much more significant than just a session. I can't put into words every single thing that we touch on. I wish I could just put it into words for 20 to 40 minutes like we have here, but instead I have about 10 to 12 hours of content breaking it all down into digestible steps because it is such a process. And then we test out our knowledge with the past lives, right? And people really open up with the past lives because you don't know already what you might see or how deep it could go, right? So with the past lives is where people really see a lot of really crazy things because your brain can't get in the middle of it and say, well, I want to see this and I think it's going to look like that. With past lives, you can't do that. So yes, I do record sessions and I will message you after. So the past lives are really, really, really intense and beautiful and awakening because it's really the first time in the course, other than the spirit guide, actually, when we begin, we're able to see the spirit guide. And that is really amazing too, because you also can't just say, well, I think it looks like this and I think it's going to sound like that, or talk to me this way, communicate with me this way, right? It's not that way. You have to go into it totally blind. And our brain does not like that. So again, with just a session, it's really difficult for me to say you're going to have to train your mind to think totally opposite than everything you've ever known to be true. Where in the course, we take hour by hour, module by module, and we are breaking down your psyche one step at a time to allow this portal to open and to allow your spirit to truly, truly attune to this hyper healing space, this superhuman ability that we all have to slow down, attune to the higher sources that are constantly available to us, right? That is the Akashic Records. And the 1111 portal is the time and the perfect conditions to access it. And then, of course, my course that I offer is the perfect way to fine tune it and to dive in deeper and to become certified to host your own sessions for your own clients, to utilize it for your own business. As I said, like branding, ideas for photo shoots, ideas for your courses. You can channel all of that, which we're going to anyways, right? But with the Akashic Records, you can visualize it. You can see it right there in front of you. I've had meditations before where I literally am seeing Instagram. And I'm like, oh, there it is, right? Like, that's my page. And then we use the Akashic Records to figure out how to utilize it to the best of our ability, right? And websites and everything as well. And soon this will lead into the shadow work and it will be offered together as above, so below, and it will be a combination. And that's going to be extremely powerful. So I just wanted to thank everybody who showed up live. I definitely will be reaching out to you. I hope you all have a wonderful 11/11 and thank you guys so much for being here. Bye.